Good morning, Aurora. I'm Ruby Sue, bringing this week's weather to you. Today is an absolutely gorgeous day. I should know I did walk to the ACTV studios today. Lots of Aurorans out in a great mood, walking their dogs, and why wouldn't they be, with a low of 70 degrees and a high of 73 degrees today. However, don't bust out the barbecue or the bonfire just yet, as today we are experiencing a little bit of an elevated fire danger, so perhaps a better day for a picnic. Wednesday's weather brings us a low of 60 degrees and a high of 68 degrees, still lovely. Partly sunny with a 20 to 30% chance of precipitation. Wednesday night, after midnight, we have 50 to 80% chance of a thunderstorm, so keep those puppers safe to you and comfortable. We have a low of 42 degrees with a high of 52 degrees. Thursday brings us much excitement with severe thunderstorms. 80 to 90% chance of those, a low of 54 degrees during the day with a high of 68 degrees. Thursday night, 60 to 80% chance of thunderstorms with a low of 39 degrees and a high of 49 degrees. Now, both Wednesday and Thursday, we have what we Illinoisans know as cooler near the lake, but here in Aurora, it's cooler by the Fox. Friday brings us 20% slight chance of morning rain, a high of 54 degrees during the day, low of 43. We have for Friday night, 32 degrees low and a 38 degree high, making it the perfect night out in Aurora. Catch a show, get some dinner, have a ball. Saturday brings us a low of 53 degrees with a high of 56. We have partly sunny. I think Saturday is the perfect afternoon to start that spring cleaning you've been looking forward to all winter long. Saturday night, we have a 20 to 30% chance of precipitation with a low of 31 degrees and a high of 37 degrees. Enjoy your day and enjoy your week, Aurora.
Imagine what's possible.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this morning's press conference. My name is Miss Levin, Chief of Staff, Chief Executive. I want to thank you all for coming. Press conference will begin momentarily. Security, that young lady with a giant pair of scissors over there, thank you. So I'd like to ask you to please, at this time, silence or turn off your phones, put on Do Not Disturb. Thank you. Also, we will take a few questions and follow-up to this press conference will be provided to each of you digitally. We have a short presentation for you to start with, which we will play now.
Imagine what's possible when a city makes an unprecedented investment, a commitment that reshapes a city's landscape forever, that equalizes economic opportunity, elevates education for all, empowers businesses, inspires collaboration between institutions, improves public services, and enhances the lives of every resident. Now, imagine that city is ours. We know it's possible because other cities have done it. Places like Longmont, Colorado, a community that leveraged its investment in municipal electricity and upgraded its substations to create a 17-mile fiber loop, delivering critical connectivity to the city's institutions, organizations, and small businesses, achieving an incredibly high adoption rate. And in Pharr, Texas, a border town of 80,000, voted the least connected city in America, invested in 700 miles of fiber, delivering broadband managed services that are enriching residents' lives. Cities, towns, and regions are stepping up all over America. There is no question that Aurora can and deserves to be America's next great smart city. But it's up to us. We have a responsibility we can't ignore to see everyone living in our city, regardless of economic status, having broadband services that are simple, efficient, safe, and powerful. Imagine children having safe internet access anywhere, never needing to connect outside of a fast food restaurant. Imagine every building in every neighborhood and retail outlet, new and old, modernized, intuitive, secure. Imagine exciting subscribers with the ultimate broadband experience and giving parents control over all of it. Imagine deploying cyberbullying protection that notifies parents throughout Aurora that their kids are being bullied and providing resources to protect them. Imagine a city with first responders seamlessly connected and with safer public spaces. Can you see this smart city? Can you see our future? We do. Aurora is ready for world-class connection that serves our residents, that helps businesses grow and unifies our community. Let's take this opportunity to give all of our residents, businesses, and community organizations the advantages that come with unrivaled broadband infrastructure and services. Let's come together and deliver a world where digital equity creates a city that is smarter, safer, and sustainable for generations to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Executive, Mr. C.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to this fantastic press conference. I want to say, first of all, thank you very much to our new Chief of Staff, Ruby Sue, who's doing a fantastic job here in the city of Aurora. To all the gathered media that's here, this is a very important day for all of you. You're going to see and hear things that you didn't think possible here in the second largest city. Aurora is on the move. Now we do have a little time for questions, little bit of time for questions. So we will take some of your questions. But first things first, I want to let you guys know that I'm happy to have been elected to serve all of you. Now, you know, for a long time in this city, we didn't see a lot of anything. Downtown, empty stores. Those days are over with. Crime, and we needed Batman. Batman's here now. So what we'll be doing today is a combination of showing you guys what's to come, what's happening, and what we're going to strengthen working together. So to all the media that's here, you're going to see and hear a lot of great things, so please get ready for that. So I think that we'll take a few questions. We can start off with some of your questions. So what we'll do is we'll start first. What we gonna do? Here, should we get that guy? You right there, sir. You right there.
Hey, thank you. Bill Simmons from Action News here. Sir, what are three main focuses of your current administration or your newly coming administration?
Thank you very much for that question. Very much for that question. Bill Simmons of Action News. Here's the thing. 3 areas of focus for our administration. I'm so glad you asked that. Economic development, safety, and fun. ESF. Economic development, EDSF. EDSF. Economic development, safety, and fun. First things we're going to do is we're going to improve the development here in the city of Aurora. We're going to have sparkling infrastructure, grandiose designs. Taking into account our Aurora history, we're going to strengthen that, rebuild it, and have everything on the National Register of Historic Places. That's economic development. Safety is paramount. I want all children to be able to play safely in the streets. I want them to climb the tree without fear of falling on a pine cone and getting a boo-boo. Fun. You are gonna have fun here in the city of Aurora. You will. From the Paramount to the River Edge Park to, what's another fun thing that we do here? Restaurants. Eat, drink, and be merry. All 3 of those things are gonna be happening. All right, next question.
Sir, this is Bill again.
Oh,
hey, I was
God.
just talking to Dante Washington from the World News, and he'd asked me to find out if safety is a huge concern, not just here but nationally, and what steps would you take to ensure public safety remains resolute? That's from Dante Washington.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you asked that question. So a lot of you guys may not know, I used to be a prosecutor. In my tenure as prosecutor, I gave 100 bad guys combined total of 1,000 years in prison. The streets are safer than they ever have been here in the city of Aurora, ladies and gentlemen. You want to ask what I'm doing for safety? Well, I'll tell you. I will strengthen our law enforcement and stand with our first responders. They will know that this chief executive has their back and their front, their sides, their top and bottom. Not only that, we're going to revive McGruff. You guys remember McGruff? I know you guys remember McGruff. Everybody remember? We're going to take a bite out of crime. That's what we're going to do. I want everyone in the city on the east side and the west side, particularly in our downtown, to be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor. You should be able to walk safely at night. Go to Craft Urban, $5 wine on Wednesdays, half hour. Tavern on Broadway, and go catch a show. We want that for all of you here. So that's what we'll be doing with safety. We're going to strengthen our first responders, strengthen our law enforcement, and work closer hand in hand to achieve the kind of results all Aurorans want to see. I'm glad you asked that question, Mr. Simmons. All right. Sit down. Hold up. Sit down right there. Okay, take it easy. Okay, next question.
Bill Simmons again. This is super awkward, but Mike Jackson got a flat tire on his way here. So he sent over a text. He's from the World Super News, and he'd like to say that you've done so much for the great city of Aurora already. The events, the parades, the festivals, standing with our first responders and heroes of law enforcement. Mike's readers would like to know, sir, how are you able to do this with all this energy? You just never seem to get tired for some reason.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you want to know how I do it? Thank you very much. All right. Well, here's how we do it. We do this with I go to bed real early. I wake up real early because I love Aurora, and I don't take any days off to get what you guys deserve. In my past life as a prosecutor and even now serving all of you fine folks, I'm fueled every day by what you desire. I don't get tired because I want all people here to be fully able to take care of themselves. So what do? I wake up in the morning, I take a little run, I eat my fruits and veggies, okay, a little bit of yogurt, and then I hit the books. I mean, you see this? You see this? This is all the work this administration is doing, and we just getting started. We are just getting started. So I say to the people, get ready, get prepared, get excited about what we're going to do, because I am your champion. And this administration is going to take Aurora to the top. We're going places that we've never been before. And now there was a gentleman named Anton Kerner. He grew up, he told me a story once upon a time. Anton Kerner is just the kind of person who we represent. You know, he's an old school guy. He grew up in Pigeon Hill here in Aurora, historic neighborhood. He asked me, what are you doing, sir, to preserve our historic neighborhoods? I told him, stay tuned. Can't let you know right now. Stay tuned. But for the Anton Kerners of the world, and for the Josie Mendoza Gellers, and for the Tracy Durans, and for the RJ Ogrins, we will do and show you all the best of Aurora every single day. Now, we have time for one. Should we do one more question?
Let's take one more.
I think we'll take one more question. Do they deserve one more question is the thing.
You can't stop Aurora.
You can't stop Aurora. You're right. Okay, let's take one more question. You, sir.
Hey, folks, Bill again, and we seem to have run out of questions.
Turn his mic off.
But it's very good to be here, and we're glad to see that Curtis is doing some great things. Thank you.
Yes, this is, that's good. Well, I think that's where we'll actually wrap it up today. I think we'll do that. Now, I want you guys to understand something here. This is what happens when you vote. When you vote, you strengthen your community, indeed. You know, I was, I didn't win the first time I ran. That's like my 5th time running. But I finally made it. And it reminds me of something my dad told me a long time ago. He said, Curtis, or sir, my dad called me sir when I was like a kid. He said, sir, when you apply yourself applies to you. And I didn't know what that meant when I was a kid, and I still don't know what it means now. But what I can tell you is that this administration is working for you and for the best of all Aurorans. This is our very first press conference today. We expect to do a whole lot more of these because Aurora is going to continue to grow and thrive. And our next State of the City event will be coming up very soon. It's TBD right now, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to be doing more of these to let you guys know what the administration is doing every day on your behalf. That's it for today's press conference. We are going to wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you guys have a fantastic, blessed, and wonderful day. And we will see you guys back here tomorrow. So please, no more questions. No more questions. I think I'm going to hand this over to my chief of staff. No more questions. All right.
The Community Foundation was created by a group of people who got together and wanted to make a difference. 75 years later, the Community Foundation makes a huge impact on the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the community. All started with the small but promising beginnings of just a few people who wanted to do something good.
The Community Foundation is made up of all the citizens, really, who want a better community.
And really, anyone who wants to do good in the community but doesn't know how to do it, the Community Foundation is the perfect solution because for 75 years we've been making an impact by connecting donors that care with causes that matter.
So it's multifaceted, and it's an organization that isn't there just to serve a certain small constituency or a special need, but rather the community as a whole.
So many generous donors have left a legacy with us because we are a trusted resource and we make being philanthropic an easy task.
In my mind, it always seemed like a really complicated process. Here, it's just effortless.
The Community Foundation does all the administrative work for you.
I just make a phone call, they're on it, they get back to me right away. It's been seamless.
Our scholarship program is just incredible.
I had no idea the impact that the foundation has on these kids. You know, some of these districts that we're working with here are some of the neediest districts in the state. It renews your faith in humanity, you know.
I was the first one ever in my family to go to college. The scholarship from the Community Foundation has impacted my life and my wife's life in many ways. As you can see, it still brings a tear to my eye.
Without their assistance, we can't do the work that we are meant to do for the citizens of the Fox River Valley community.
You can invest your money in people. You invest it in people and you hope and believe that the return will be great.
Someone opened the door for you at some point in your life, and it's incumbent upon you, it's your duty to help open the door for others, and you do that through service.
Not your bank's top priority? Here at Wintrust, we take a different approach to banking. No hidden fees or runarounds, but a true banking partner focused on your unique financial goals. Whether you're opening your first account, found your dream home, planning for the future, or starting a business, we have the financial solutions to get you there. Stop settling and start experiencing a better way to bank. Wintrust, different approach, better.
YEP really allowed me to kind of branch out into my community. I learned so much, and looking back, I feel like I'm a way more confident person and someone who has a lot more perspective going into college.
YEP is designed to create leadership skills for those youth involved, but also to really engage them in philanthropy.
You can make a difference at your young age, which is really impactful because I didn't know that when I joined this.
Starting young and having people my age doing philanthropy, you instill that idea of community and helping others that sometimes is lost.
When I first came here, it was just another something to put on a resume, and now I'm up there leading the meetings and talking to these kids and trying to make the decisions and telling them, yeah, you might be 16, 17 years old, but we're making a change and so can you.
I definitely saw myself grow as a person, thinking about like how my actions can impact other people and the society around me and the environment.
It's made me more confident and like more assured in like my ability to be a leader.
We're teaching them those leadership skills, the empathy, the concern, and how they are valuable resources in the community and in the world.
We are really creating the future generation of philanthropists.
It means a lot to help other youth in my community.
I think it's the future success of our country.
By giving to the YEP program, it really creates a ripple effect in the community. It empowers high school students to learn and grow and become leaders. It gives back to the community through grant making and service. And it really inspires them to become future philanthropists and continue to do good in their community.
Helping other youth in my community, it's always something I want to be able to do, but this is a direct connection, and I think that just makes all the difference. This is all money that we make sure that goes to a child that needs it in some way, shape, or form.
With an endowment for YEP, we would be able to serve more nonprofits, more youth could be involved in the program, and we turn that around and help more youth in the community.
And not only are they helping like the people that their money is going to, but they're helping us grow and become better people as well.
The endowment is the vehicle that will help our students today become the leaders of our community tomorrow.
It's really rewarding to be able to, as a youth, help other youth, and it makes me feel proud of myself.
I would say it's thoroughly changed me. I've definitely thought about myself and my place in my community and what I can do to help others.
Philanthropy is not just about the money, it's about whatever you're capable of giving and the fact that you want to do it.
The community and the friends that we make, and that you could give back at such a young age, it's just so powerful and just a great movement.
We might be. Good morning, everybody. We are back. We are back. It was a spirited press conference. I don't know if you guys, that press conference was awesome. We do have a new administration here in the city, so congratulations to that. My guest today is Qasim Rashid. He is here with us, and he is candidate for Congress, the Illinois district, 11th district.
That's right, right here where we are right now.
This is our second time sitting down. How are you?
Right. I'm fantastic. How are you?
All right, man. Good to see you again.
Likewise, brother.
Good to see you again.
Likewise.
Good to see you again. So, the last time you and I spoke, we had talked about your work as an attorney.
That's
we
right.
also talked about the books you read, but we also talked about your road and your journey for this 11th congressional district. Now, early voting has started.
That's right.
That's right. We've been telling you guys to vote all the time. How have things been? How do our prospects look?
You know, we started this campaign on the principle that we're going to be a 100% people-funded campaign because voters need to know that we can have somebody in Congress who's accountable to them, not to these corporations.
Right.
And we've maintained that promise. We ran on the principles of economic, social, and climate justice, so voters know that we are focused on working families first and foremost, to make sure that they have money in their pocket, food on the table, a roof over their head. That we are focused on social justice to ensure people have health care access.
Right.
Climate justice to make sure that we have clean air, food, and water. And the message has resonated extraordinarily well. We have knocked over 75,000 doors in the district, personally. We've made almost 1 million phone calls. And between our staff and our volunteers, we have well over 100 people working on our campaign right now. We've built a movement. Early voting is looking great. We are 1 week out. There are a lot of mail-in ballots that are still pending. So if you are, I'm going to do my Michael from the office thing. If you have a mail-in ballot sitting on your desktop or your kitchen counter, go mail it in right now because you want your voice heard.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, we need to play a participatory role, a leadership role in our democracy. And we have a chance to elect a 100% people-funded candidate. You know, and look, I emphasize this a lot. When I talk about economic struggles, I don't just mean what's happening right now. I look at the fact I grew up low income. I grew up in Section 8 housing. I grew up on food stamps. I know what that struggle is like. I've been fortunate, my wife and I, to be able to do well enough for ourselves. But what pains me to no end is that wealth and income inequality is worse now than it was 30 years ago when I was a child.
It is.
And that's not by accident. That's by design, because the politicians in office right now who are supposed to be protecting us from exploitation are being funded by the politicians, are being funded by the corporations doing the exploitation. And the only way we're going to break this cycle is by electing people-funded candidates. That's the promise that I made when I launched this campaign, and that's the promise we hope to fulfill once we win this election next week.
You grew up in DuPage County.
I did.
And you're knocking on those doors.
Right.
And I'll say this, you've been all over the place.
Yeah.
You've been all over the
Tell
place.
me more.
I'm saying you you guys have been everywhere.
That's right.
And the social media campaign and everything is looking really good, really well.
Right.
Now, when it comes to climate justice,
that's right.
Okay, where do we start as an individual? Where do we start as the people and the neighbors when you knock on those doors? Are you finding people who know what you're talking about? Are these people who are brand new to the subject? Or are you knocking on doors of people who okay, you know what, I do need to start learning more, or they know a little bit about it?
There are, the folks of this district are pretty well informed, in my opinion. In my conversations, folks get it. They understand the urgency of now. And that's, I think, a big contrast between me and my opponent. I'm the only one who's people funded. He's taking money from Exxon and Exelon and other big energy fossil fuel companies. I want to follow climate science, what climate scientists are telling us, that we need a carbon neutral economy by 2030. He wants to wait till 2050. Climate science tells us that fracking is bad. It poisons our water. It causes earthquakes. He's pro-fracking. Climate science tells us that carbon capture and offshore drilling is bad. It's ineffective. It's destructive. He's pro-carbon capture. He's voted for offshore drilling. So we're able to make a very strong contrast between me, who actually follows the climate science, and him, who follows what Exxon tells him what to do. And what's beautiful about this issue of climate justice, to me, is that people think this is a left-wing issue. No. And I remind folks that there are a lot of conservatives who are also conservationists as well, right? Conservatives love the outdoors just as much as liberals and progressives do.
Right.
And so this, to me, is a very unifying factor. And we have folks from, of course, Democrats voting for us, but I've got Republicans coming to our events saying, I appreciate the fact that you're people funded. I appreciate the fact that you want to protect our climate. And we're earning their vote and support as well. And we're doing it by running on these values of transparency and trust. You mentioned we've been everywhere. I'm proud of the fact that we have hosted over 175 events. We've attended more than 300 events over the last 7-8 months. And some of these have been amazing events. Alpha Kappa Alpha, Black Women's Sorority, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, had a candidate forum. My opponent didn't even bother responding. He refused to show up. 120 black women on this forum. Now, If his strategy is to upset 120 black women by not giving them the dignity of showing up and having a conversation, that's his strategy. To me, I will always respect people by showing up and being present. And, you know, I'm applying for a job right now, right?
Right.
This is a job interview. If you're not going to even show up to the interview and expect to be hired, that's a pretty bold strategy. But my view is you got to show up, you got to be present, because that transparency is what leads to trust, and that trust is what leads to votes as well.
So you mentioned, you know, a conservative issue versus a Democrat issue. I'm just curious, do you run into a lot of that when you knock on people's doors? I mean,
we're actually
we're talking about kitchen table issues.
We're primarily knocking on doors of Democrats.
Okay.
But what's exciting is because we have so many public events, we have Republicans showing up as well.
Right.
Our doors are open. I had an event 2 weeks ago in Bolingbrook. Guy shows up. He says, "Look, I'm a MAGA Trump Republican, and I'm here because people said that you're open to dialogue, so I want to put you to the test." We had a robust conversation on immigration. That was his issue, and he ended up saying, "Okay, that immigration policy actually makes sense. You got my vote." And what's significant about this is that, to me, that's what bipartisanship is. It's looking at the facts and winning people over one person at a time. It's not compromising our values.
Right.
It's saying that here are my values, and here's why these values align logically, morally, economically, practically, constitutionally. And I think when you have those reasonable discussions with folks, people are pretty reasonable. People are willing to find common ground, but you got to be out there and have those conversations. And let me be clear, not every conversation ends positive, but you don't have the opportunity to build a bridge unless you have the conversation in the first place, and that's what we're committed to.
What's wrong with Congress?
What's wrong with Congress?
Besides money and politics.
That's the biggest thing.
Okay.
You know, I was at an event with Governor Pat Quinn a few weeks ago, and he said, you know, we need to elect people who will ensure that the will of the people is the law of the land, right? The fact that there's so much money in politics, you're exactly right. This is why, despite how divided our country is, 95% of people, Democrats and Republicans alike, agree we got to get corporate money out of politics. It's not enough just to give lip service to it. I'm about it. I'm not taking corporate money. I'm rejecting it. I'm actively telling them, I'm having, and I've said this to corporations, that if you want to have a conversation on policy, I'll sit down and have the conversation, but I'm not taking any money from you, because that, to me, is contrary to the values of we the people, right? Last I checked, that's what our Constitution says, we the people, not we the LLCs or the S-corps.
Right.
So what's wrong with Congress is that the people we've elected to protect our interests are being funded by the corporations exploiting us. I'll give you one really good example. The National Association of Realtors, you know, and this is for anybody who cares about how bad housing has gotten, how high house prices are. I think that's something we could all relate to. National Association of Realtors was just fined $2 billion for exploiting home sellers and therefore home buyers by jacking up prices.
Right.
Okay, $2 billion, not a small amount.
No.
My opponent sits on the House Financial Services Oversight Committee. It's his job to conduct oversight on the National Association of Realtors. Not only has he completely failed to conduct oversight, he's taken nearly $80,000 in campaign re-election money from them. Now you tell me, how can we trust him to protect us from housing exploitation when he's taking money from the people doing the exploitation, right? So when you ask about what's wrong in Congress, that's what's fundamentally wrong. We have no trust in the people we've elected because they're funded by the people exploiting us. And this is why Congress has an 11% approval rating, but a 91% re-election rate,
right?
Because of money in politics. And so we have built a movement. We've had more than 13,000 individual people donate to our campaign. That's a movement. That is an effective. We've had more donations to our campaign in the last 9 months than my opponent has had in the last 4 years combined. That's the power of a people-funded movement. And that's how, when I'm elected, people will know that every vote I make will be with them in mind. And I tell folks, vote for me and then haunt my dreams to hold me accountable, because I'm not about the lip service, I'm about action.
Haunt my dreams to hold me accountable.
Absolutely.
So what are the boundaries of the 11th congressional district? Where's the span?
Thanks to our good friend Gerrymander, it's a very gerrymandered district. It starts way down in with chunks of Romeoville and Lamont.
Okay.
Covers Bolingbrook, tiny bit of Darien, Lisle, Woodridge, Naperville, and then it goes up through Batavia, Geneva, and St. Charles, out, up to Woodstock, up to McHenry County, and then all the way west to Belvedere. And so if you go to our website at qasimrashid.com, QASIMRASHID, qasimrashid.com, and just scroll down, there's a link that says, am I in the district? Click on that, punch in your address, and it'll tell you in a few seconds if you're in the district. Most of Aurora is in the district as well.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Immigration.
Yes.
Immigration is an issue in our country. What is your plan or strategy to assist in the immigration issue?
Well, one, we got to look at the facts. There's a lot of misinformation about immigrants out there.
There is.
And
there is. That's very well said. Absolutely.
And actually, going back to that MAGA Trump guy, I said to him that if I told you immigrants were costing us $7 trillion to the economy, you would believe me, right? He goes, yeah, well, they are. I'm like, okay. If I told you that Donald Trump deported 3.5 times as many undocumented immigrants as Biden, you'd believe me. He goes, yeah, that's why we got to bring Trump back. I'm like, all right. What if I told you the opposite is true? That a recent study by the Washington Post found that undocumented immigrants have contributed $7 trillion to our economy.
Right.
And he goes, well, I didn't know that. I'm like, and what if I told you that Joe Biden has deported 3.5 times the rate as Donald Trump? He goes, well, I didn't know that either.
Right.
I'm like, so there's a lot of misinformation out there. Now, how do we address this issue? I think there's a 3-part strategy. One, we need to recognize asylum as a human right, and we need to invest in immigration judges and attorneys at the border to process these claims so that they don't take 2-3 years. They can be done in a few weeks. I'm an immigration attorney. I've done asylum claims. These can be processed quickly if we have the resources to do them. And by the way, contrary to the mythology promoted by my opponent and some other people that 95% of asylum claims are rejected, since 2000, about 40% have been accepted. That's a pretty significant chunk. And we have a promise constitutionally and internationally to hear asylum claims. All right. So invest in the resources to process these claims. 2, we need to recognize the massive economic opportunity here. I already mentioned that undocumented immigrants contribute $7 trillion to our economy and tens of billions in taxes that, by the way, they can't use. They pay taxes they get no benefit from. So it only benefits us. Right now, there's 4.5 million vacant migrant worker jobs, agricultural jobs filled by migrant workers. 4.5 million. These aren't jobs that Americans are taking or want. These are jobs that migrant workers specialize in. If we had an economic visa worker program, which is not terribly difficult to implement, now you're documenting people, you're giving them a pathway for economic opportunity, you're allowing us, our farms, small and large, to be able to better predict what their workforce is going to look like. You're able to better predict produce costs and keep costs low, especially with inflation right now. This will lower costs there as well. And also, you're going to significantly cut down on human trafficking and exploitation of these workers. Right? And in the backdrop, you massively benefit our economy, which is a win-win for everybody. And then finally, we need a pathway to citizenship for DACA and Dreamers. There's no reason why these neighbors of ours are left in limbo.
Right.
And you do that by passing legislation. You can also do that by investing heavily in USCIS so that people aren't waiting 7-8 years. I was at Mateo Valley High School a few weeks ago.
Go Mustangs.
And yeah, it's a beautiful campus, amazing faculty, wonderful students. Young senior comes up to me and says, Mr. Rashid, I'm an immigrant. My family came here documented. We've been here a decade now. A decade, and I still don't have my green card. I can't apply for college. I can't continue my life. What do I do in this situation? Now, this is a person who everyone says, just follow the rules, get in line, play by the rules, and it'll be fine. He did all of that, and they've been here a decade, and they don't have their green card right now.
Right.
That's fundamentally the problem. That incentivizes bad behavior. And so we solve it by investing in USCIS, by investing in immigration judges and immigration attorneys, by investing in the economic pathway for migrant workers, by investing in a pathway for citizenship. None of this is pie in the sky.
Right.
None of this is like, let's hope it works. We know this works. We just need to have people in Congress with the political willpower, with the understanding of immigration law and human rights law to demand these things, because this is what the American people want.
I was under the impression that there was a visa for working for for undocumented folks of some fashion.
It's not effective, and that's my point. That we need to have the resources to invest in this program to make it more effective, because right now the amount of undocumented workers and the amount of exploitation of these workers is truly catastrophic. You know, I hear folks on the right talk about human trafficking and exploitation. This is how you solve that.
Right.
By investing in this. And this is not a new idea. President Reagan talked about this almost 50 years ago, 45 years ago. We need to invest in it aggressively right now.
So what's wrong with the law, though? I've heard a lot of folks who talk about the laws are part of the barrier in this system. So, you know, hiring more judges and more staff to deal with the flow is certainly, but what's wrong with the laws that can be changed? Your experience as an attorney with this too.
Well, fundamentally, they're outdated.
Okay.
You know, we have to remember that, you know, African Americans didn't immigrate here.
Right.
They were trafficked here.
Right.
And then post-Civil War, the immigration laws that we had on the books started with the Chinese Exclusion Act, led to a full ban on Asian immigration by 1924, full ban on African immigration, and near full ban of immigrants from South and Central America.
Right.
Meanwhile, you had open borders from Europe, effectively, and the Homestead Act giving huge acres of land to white European immigrants. It wasn't until 1965, the Immigration and Nationalization Act, that you had any semblance of a moral and decent and just immigration policy. Right.
Just being across the board,
right.
fair.
Right. 1965. I mean, that's yesterday's newspaper. So for the first 200 years of this country, you had Africans who were trafficked, you had Europeans who were essentially allowed to come without any documentation, and you had all other people of color essentially banned. And since then, you have a policy that is based on outdated quotas, outdated philosophies, and outdated policies and procedures. We need an updated immigration policy for the 21st century, and you do that by looking at the fact that our economy grows by leaps and bounds when we increase immigration. Our crime rates decrease when you increase immigration. Our immigrants have a higher rate of vaccination than U.S. citizens. So all across the board, we recognize that the United States became the powerhouse it is through immigration.
Right.
And if we want to continue to be a powerhouse, whether it's in the agricultural sector, in the tech sector, in the entrepreneurship sector, you do that by building legislation that incentivizes immigration, because that's how you build a stronger economy and a stronger country.
You picked up some endorsements recently as well. Many endorsements. Let's talk about those.
Well, we've picked up some great labor endorsements. The Chicago Federation of Musicians, American Postal Workers Union, some phenomenal endorsements from climate justice organizations, including Gen Z for Change, because they recognize that our climate policy is based in science. Some wonderful endorsements from about 30 local and state electeds within the district, including the alderman at large here at Aurora, John Leish. And then beyond that, tons of endorsements from progressive organizations, establishment organizations, and independent organizations. I'm extraordinarily proud of the fact that we have built a coalition, not just of party line Democrats, but Independent Voters of Illinois Association has endorsed us as well. That, I think, speaks to our ability to be a big tent campaign, to bring folks in. You don't have to align with us perfectly on every single issue.
Sure.
But because we're willing to build a dialogue and build a cohesive campaign built on these issues of economic, social, and climate justice, it's attracting people from across the political spectrum. It's a really exciting thing. We just got announced an exciting endorsement a couple days ago. Amber Jersa, North Suburban Teacher of the Year, endorsed our campaign. I didn't realize there's 700 teachers that seek that nomination, and she won it out of 700 in the area.
You said that name kind of fast. What was her name?
Amber Jersa.
Amber Jersa.
Yep. African-American woman, a teacher at Batavia High School.
Okay.
Just an amazing human being, phenomenal teacher, and excited that she's in our corner.
All right. Now you've there are many issues in politics.
Yeah.
Absolutely. From the money, from the traditional lack of representation.
That's right.
Many different things. And I applaud all the progressive efforts to change those. At the same time, you were recently at the Truman Dinner.
I was.
Which is probably as establishment as you can get.
That's right.
Why be there?
Well, to me, I will always keep the door open to dialogue.
Sure.
That to me is a critical component.
Absolutely.
I will always keep the door open to dialogue, and I will always find ways to build bridges of understanding and dialogue.
Of course.
I was at the Truman Dinner. I was also here at Aurora City Hall when there was the hearing on migrants.
You stood up and spoke.
I stood up and spoke.
I did see that. Yep.
And I demanded accountability and justice for migrants as well. I was at the migrant worker facility. I'm not the worker facility. I'm sorry. It's a nonprofit in Woodstock working to support migrants who need clothing and food. I was up there helping out as well. And so for me, my door to dialogue will always be open. I know my principles and values. I'm very public about them. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to bring you to my side by cutting you off.
Sure.
I'm not going to bring you to my side by saying, you're irredeemable. Right. And I've said this. I've had more instances than I can count of Republicans in the district who reached out to me and said, I want to have a dialogue about X, Y, Z. I said, sure, let's get together and have that dialogue. Because that is how we build a stronger country. That's what's lacking in politics right now. And rather than contribute to the division and the divisiveness and the rhetoric that's causing so many people so much pain, I would rather find ways to have that dialogue and understanding. And at the Truman Dinner, there was a wide variety of folks there. Some establishment, some progressive. But to me, the commitment to protect our democracy, to fight for economic, social, and climate justice was there. And that's why I participated in that dinner.
And you got to be at the table.
Have to.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're on the menu.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. That's
exactly
right. Now, so with that being said, and we've got the 19th is coming up.
Very quickly, 1 week away.
Very quickly, 1 week away. What's your message for this this week that we have this time?
We have two very different visions for what the future of this district can look like. The current vision is of a politician worth $20 million who made his wealth through TIFs, which I know are a big issue in Aurora right now. His company in Wisconsin took tax cuts that was revenue stripped away from public schools and public education. In fact, it was so bad that even Republicans criticized him that you're taking money away from. When Republicans are criticizing you for defunding public schools, you know it's bad. A politician who's been around for 8 terms, who has not passed a single actual piece of legislation outside of renaming a post office. A politician who is not taking the climate crisis seriously, who voted to deregulate banks with Donald Trump, who has voted at least 3 times to strip down the ACA and deny people health care who have pre-existing conditions. That's the current vision versus a future of a 100% people-funded public servant, somebody who is an immigrant to this country and knows the struggle of immigration. I was 4 years old when we got here. Somebody who grew up in low-income Section 8 housing, had to work at the age of 15 because the food stamps weren't enough. Somebody who put himself through college, through law school, who has worked for 15 years as a human rights lawyer, supporting survivors of domestic and sexual violence, working on expanding healthcare and education access, worked on prison reform, worked on training law enforcement on Fourth Amendment right to privacy protections. Someone who has personally knocked thousands and thousands of doors in Illinois, not just for my own campaign, but for other candidates, because to me, we need to elect more good people, and I will work to support anyone who's doing that. Someone who is 100% people funded, so you know that when I am elected, I will be accountable to you. Someone who is fighting for the basic dignity of guaranteed universal health care so that you don't go bankrupt just because you got sick or because you had cancer or because you got in a car accident. Someone who is fighting to cancel student debt, who is demanding an end to the siege on Gaza and a release of all hostages. All these things are exclusive to my vision. And so if that's the vision you want, of someone who is people funded, someone who understands the struggle of economic injustice, someone who is accountable to we the people and will always be accountable, and someone who can bust out a dad joke on a dime whenever you want, that's the guy. If that's what you want for Congress, I hope to have your vote on or before March 19th.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. So we are here with Qasim Rashid, candidate for Congress in the 11th Congressional District. Right now, we're going to go to a brief commercial, and then we will be right back. Stay tuned.
Imagine what's possible when a city makes an unprecedented investment. A commitment that reshapes a city's landscape forever, that equalizes economic opportunity, elevates education for all, empowers businesses, inspires collaboration between institutions, improves public services, and enhances the lives of every resident. Now, imagine that city is ours. We know it's possible because other cities have done it. Places like Longmont, Colorado, a community that leveraged its investment in municipal electricity and upgraded its substations to create a 17-mile fiber loop, delivering critical connectivity to the city's institutions, organizations, and small businesses, achieving an incredibly high adoption rate. And in Pharr, Texas, a border town of 80,000, voted the least connected city in America, invested in 700 miles of fiber, delivering broadband managed services that are enriching residents' lives. Cities, towns, and regions are stepping up all over America. There is no question that Aurora can and deserves to be America's next great smart city. But it's up to us. We have a responsibility we can't ignore to see everyone living in our city, regardless of economic status, having broadband services that are simple, efficient, safe, and powerful. Imagine children having safe internet access anywhere, never needing to connect outside of a fast food restaurant. Imagine every building in every neighborhood and retail outlet, new and old, modernized, intuitive, secure. Imagine exciting subscribers with the ultimate broadband experience and giving parents control over all of it. Imagine deploying cyberbullying protection that notifies parents throughout Aurora that their kids are being bullied and providing resources to protect them. Imagine a city with first responders seamlessly connected and with safer public spaces. Can you see this smart city? Can you see our future? We do. Aurora is ready for world-class connection that serves our residents, that helps businesses grow and unifies our community. Let's take this opportunity to give all of our residents, businesses, and community organizations the advantages that come with unrivaled broadband infrastructure and services. Let's come together and deliver a world where digital equity creates a city that is smarter, safer, and sustainable for generations to come.
All right, we are back. The time is 8:49 a.m. You're listening to and watching Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. Now we're going to start landing our airplane with our great guest today, Mr. Qasim Rashid, candidate for Congress in the 11th Congressional District. Healthcare,
yes,
is important. What is your plan for healthcare, and how do you differ from your opponent?
I believe that healthcare is a human right, and we need to have guaranteed universal healthcare for all people, regardless of economics or social status. He believes in a for-profit health insurance model that we should provide access only if people can pay for it. And that to me is immoral and cruel. Look, 30 plus developed nations in the world guarantee healthcare as a human right. And what they do is they say, hey, our taxes that our citizens are paying should go to fund their healthcare. And guess what? They are spending half per capita as Americans on healthcare for universal coverage. They have no copays, no deductibles, no prescription costs, none of that nonsense. And what they're seeing is every single developed country that has guaranteed universal healthcare, they have higher life expectancy than we do. They have lower maternal mortality. They have lower infant mortality.
Right.
And this is particularly an epidemic for Black and Latino women who suffer nearly a 300% maternal mortality rate. And so my vision is we have a proven model that works. We need to stop exploiting people for healthcare, give people access to the care that they need. And this is especially personal for my wife Aisha and I. We have 3 amazing children. Our youngest daughter, Hana Noor, when she was 5, she was diagnosed with an incurable autoimmune disease. And doctors had the very tough conversation with us that if we can't find medication that stabilizes her, she's not going to make it. Now, fortunately, we found that medication, but there's 2 problems with it. The first problem was that the insurance company that we have through the ACA refuses to cover it. And so for the last 2.5 years, in addition to our premiums, we've had to spend an extra $1,000 a month so my daughter can live. Now, I'm fortunate that I'm at a place in my life where my wife and I can afford that. But 90% of Americans can't afford an extra $1,000 a month.
Right.
And to force them to do that because insurance companies want more money is cruel and barbaric. But that's the model my opponent supports. The second problem with that is that we knew that medication was only going to last so long. And in January, we got some terrible news that her blood tests are coming back, that the medication is no longer effective. We need to transition her to the final stage of medication called a biologic infusion. It's a fancy term for they hook her up to an IV for 2 to 3 hours, 6 times a year for the dosage to fully go into effect. Each dosage costs $40,000, $250,000 for my daughter to live. And guess what the insurance companies told us? Nope, we're not going to cover it. My nephew in Canada has the exact same condition, and it cost him $0 because their taxes pay for their health care. And so for me, this is a no-brainer. We have 500,000 Americans a year filing for medical bankruptcy because they got sick or cancer or into some kind of car accident. It's destroying their lives. 68,000 Americans a year, according to a recent Yale study published in The Lancet, die annually because they can't get basic healthcare access. And if you care about abortion rights like I do, then you would absolutely want to have guaranteed universal healthcare, because under this current ACA model that my opponent supports, this for-profit model that my opponent champions, 30 million Americans and roughly 15 million women have 0 access to abortion care or any kind of reproductive health care. And by the way, if you're Kate Cox in Texas, even if you have insurance under this cruel for-profit model, you can't get care. You have to leave the state. We need to stop with this nonsense. We need to stop playing with people's lives, stop destroying their lives, and pass a universal healthcare model. We already have half the country on guaranteed healthcare between Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE. Nearly half the country already has it. The infrastructure is already there, and there are several universal healthcare bills already proposed on the table. Once elected, I would co-sponsor them immediately and ensure that the other half of our country that's being left to the exploitation of for-profit health insurance companies are now protected with guaranteed healthcare as a human right.
Okay, 2 things. One, you're against the ACA.
No, I'm for the ACA as a stopgap. I don't want to take away the ACA. I'm saying the ACA doesn't go far enough because it still leaves 30 million Americans exposed to no health care. The only person who's against the ACA is my opponent, who, despite voting for it in 2009, took $500,000 in health insurance money and then voted with Tea Party Republicans 3 times to repeal significant parts of the ACA. He's the only one between us who's voted to repeal the ACA. Let's be very clear about that. I want to go further than the ACA, get rid of the for-profit model that decides you get to live if you can afford to. Otherwise, tough luck. And we need to have a guaranteed healthcare model where insurance companies can still make their profit, but that profit isn't dependent upon their profit loss is not dependent upon whether we get the medication. We get the medication we need because it's the right and moral thing to do.
That sounds like a conflagration of systemic failures, not something that's tied to one individual.
No, it's not tied to one individual, but it's tied to the philosophy that a for-profit health insurance model can somehow protect us.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's just a failing model. There's no proof that it actually works. And you know, if you look at, you know, every model that does work, whether it's in Canada, whether it's the dual system in Germany, whether it's the UK, whether it's Japan, these are all countries that are thriving democracies, right? That have a thriving healthcare system that no one will argue is perfect. But when we live in a society where we're spending double per capita and we have the lowest life expectancy, that should raise a red flag.
Right.
Right? You know, you spend more on a car, you expect it to be a nicer car.
Right.
You spend more at a restaurant, you expect it to be a nicer meal. We're spending more, double, than every developed country in the world, and more of us are dying, more of us are getting sick, more of us are having medical bankruptcy. That to me is a problem, and to insist on that incrementalist approach to solving the problem is to leave tens of millions of people in harm's way, and that to me is simply unacceptable. It's wrong.
Time is 9:55 a.m. You're listening to and watching Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. We're here with Qasim Rashid, candidate for Congress in the 11th Congressional District. Last question. I saved the easiest question for last.
Yeah.
What's wrong with the Democratic Party?
I don't think we invest enough in young people, and I don't think we invest enough in a representative community of who votes for the Democratic Party. You look at the Democratic Party leadership right now, it is more diverse than the Republican Party, but not as diverse as our base at all. We don't have meaningful representation. And that's fundamentally a problem. The way my campaign is solving that is, we have 40 paid members of our campaign. And every single person is getting at least a living wage of $20 an hour. $20 to $25 an hour are what our campers are getting. And these are young people. These are people who are in college, early 20s. They're making a living wage. They can afford to buy gas, to buy groceries, to pay rent, to go out, God forbid, once in a while and have fun with their friends. And what we're doing is not just giving them a living wage, but we are training them. This is 40 jobs that we've created with this campaign. We are training them to be organizers. We are training them to be effective advocates for economic, social, and climate justice. We are transforming the local landscape, not just by knocking doors for my campaign, but I've said to any Democrat running that whether you've endorsed me or my opponent, doesn't matter to me. What matters more to me is getting you elected. And if you're a Democrat running on these values, I will carry your lit. We are carrying lit for people who haven't endorsed us. Because to me, it's not about this transactional nonsense that makes politics so nasty. It's this relational aspect of how do we have a rising tide lift all boats. And so I think where we can fix what's wrong with the Democratic Party is by training young people who are truly diverse and representative. One of my favorite authors, Mary Cowell, says that Robinette Cowell says that it's not diversity for the sake of diversity, it's representation for the sake of reality. And so for us, the reality is that the Democratic Party is a diverse and representative party of all faiths, colors, and genders. And we need to lead by example. And that's what our team is. Look at the photos we're posting of our team, right? My opponent doesn't post photos of his team because he doesn't have one. He's relying on just dunking $2-3 million in TV and thinking that that's how he's going to earn your vote. We are showing up. Our team is showing up to every single house in the district to knock and personally ask for their vote. If you live in this district, we're knocking on your house. We will end up knocking over 100,000 doors in this district to earn your vote. That's how we're fixing the Democratic Party. That's how we're strengthening our democracy. And that's how we plan to win this election and ensure that you have a representative who is people-funded, who understands the economic struggles of so many here, and will fight for economic, social, and climate justice, because that's the path forward.
Time is 9:58 a.m. and you've been listening to and watching Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. I want to say thank you very much to our guest, Qasim Rashid, today. Also, do not forget that in the description of this video, we'll have the link to Qasim's website as well. And we encourage all of you, as we always have, to exercise your right to vote. Here in downtown Aurora, the Kane County Circuit Clerk's office building, the voting place, is right next door to the GAR building. It's right here on Downer. Please exercise your right to vote. We encourage you to do so. Thank you very much, you guys, for watching today. It really means a lot. Thank you for all the support you've continued to give our show. Good Morning Aurora will be 4 years old this year. It stopped being a podcast a long time ago. We're proud to be the people's news. Be blessed. Take care of yourself and each other.
Rise and shine. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.